folks! Welcome back to my channel, or if you have never seen me before, hi. I'm Katie and I make videos about life and wellness and living a fulfilling life, and that includes college. If you did not know, I'm a sophomore at Stanford, and I still get a lot of questions about how the heck I got into Stanford. And sometimes I still wonder that myself. However, one of the most daunting parts of college app process are the essays. So even though I enjoy writing for the most part, writing about yourself is particularly daunting, so I was just going to go over my Stanford essays, what I wrote about, how I went about it, and offer some advice. Gotta pull them up because it's been about 2 years since I wrote these essays, but thankfully I saved them. First piece of advice, save everything. You never know when you might need it again. And not just for making a YouTube video, but possibly for resumes or any type of personal essay. If you put the work into it, don't just go throwing it away. Alright, so Stanford is kind of unique in its essays in that they give very specific 7 questions that you only have about 50 words, I believe. That is something I never experienced with another college, but hey, I think it helps for the admissions team to get to know you a little bit better. Name your favorite books, authors, films, and/or artists. Wasn't necessarily expecting this, but I love to talk about culture and art that I love. So in case you're curious, I said Stephen King, Muse, Wes Anderson, The Black Keys, Rick Riordan, Tanya Hurley, Halsey, Fall Out Boy, Eleanor and Park, Warm Bodies, and Pride and Prejudice, and that's exactly how I answered that question. What newspapers, magazines, and/or websites do you enjoy? Now this is the one where my family loved to talk about the fact that I answered this question with only 9 words. And it worked for me, and my family just loved to joke about that. Somehow I was able to get into Stanford with a 9-word answer to a question. BuzzFeed, Rolling Stone, 17, Los Angeles Times, National Geographic. That's exactly how I answered that question. And yes, I was nervous about that one because what are they gonna think of a teen girl who reads 17, even though I don't read it anymore. But I was 17 at the time. What is the most significant challenge society faces today? And my answer was, quote, all challenges involve biases. People are often unable to look past biases and perspectives, which can cause preventable ignorance or hatred. The greatest challenge is looking past biases that we and those we interact with carry. How did you spend your last 2 summers? I was blunt about this. I worked at Camp Keystone, my favorite childhood camp, for the last 2 summers. This last summer I also attended Georgetown University's Creative Writing Institute to pursue my passion for writing and to meet fellow writers. What were your favorite events, e.g. performances, exhibits, sporting events, conferences this past year? Another question geared to get to know the real you rather than just a very educational sounding essay. I attended a Muse concert, my favorite band, in Los Angeles. That was amazing. I was also the only teenager at the Los Angeles Writers Conference where I met literary agents and pursued publishing my novel. So, the fun and a little bit of the more serious, career-based. What historical moment or event do you wish you could have witnessed? This was the only question where I hit the 150-word limit. And I really thought about doing something a little more analytical, something that involved political history, or something that I thought people would just be more interested in seeing. But instead, I was honest and geeked out. My answer was the reign of Ramses the Great. I am fascinated by ancient Egyptian religion, culture, and politics, and the impact Egypt has had on history. Ramses' reign involved major transitions in religion, the creation of some of Egypt and the world's greatest monuments, and the signing of the world's first peace treaty. What 5 words best describe you? Passionate, empathetic, insightful, generous, energetic. And that was the short questions. Alright, and now we move on to the more lengthy questions. Now, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got when writing this application is many people said this was not my strongest application. because honestly, I didn't think I was going to get into Stanford, so I didn't put as much energy into it as I did for a school that I was obsessed with getting into, Pomona College. But I think to some degree that led me to just cut the BS when it came to writing this essay, and I just focused on what needed to be said rather than trying to impress a committee. So that's going to take me to my first piece of advice. Cut the BS. You don't need to get flowery or extravagant with writing a college essay. It's not your memoir. It's just to show who you are. Right, now for the medium length responses. Please briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities or work experiences. I talked about working at Camp Keystone, which was where I worked all throughout high school and up until this last summer, totaling 5 years working there. And while it's easy to just say I worked at a camp, the elaborate is where you want to show where the connection is made. What have you learned from it? And I talked about confidence in that when you're working with a bunch of kids, you've got to just go with the flow and make the kids energetic, which involves bringing your own energy level up. Next question. This one now into the medium length responses, which had a 250 word limit, but Stanford students possess an intellectual vitality. I believe that's true. Reflect on an idea or experience that has been important to your intellectual development. Now, there are a lot of things you can talk about when it comes to activities, whether it's learning to be a leader or how to work with other people. But in my experience, talk about why the activity matters to you, why you choose to do this activity rather than something else. And that's part of the reason I talked about newspaper rather than something else I had done in high school, such as theater. The newspaper has more of a core into who I am. I care about media and the messages people can spread and how those messages lead to better harmony among others. And so after talking about this was my experience working on my school newspaper, I talked about why journalism matters to me. Virtually all of Stanford's undergraduates live on campus. This is true. Write a note to your future roommate that reveals something about you or that will help your roommate and us know you better. Wasn't a fan of this one. But honestly, I just let it go as if it was literally writing a letter to my future roommate, even though your roommates will not see this. So I was just honest. I love to decorate and add special touches to the rooms, hence my elaborately decorated dorm this year. I love to go out, so cultural events, concerts, museums. I love fitness, so I would love a fitness buddy. It honestly was so casual, but this is the one essay where you can really get away with that. And the last question, what matters to you and why? My advice for this essay is, while it's so easy to go off on tangents right away and talk about the specifics of what matters to you, find a common topic. And mine was eliminating ignorance. And by that I meant the fact that communication is incredibly important, whether it's through literature or journalistic media, hence what I'm studying. And basically, dissolving ignorance encourages understanding in that when you know a person's background or what their actual experience is, rather than just making them a face to a movement or a cause that you may or may not like, this is when change happens. Basically, I broke it down with boldly stating, I am passionate about dissolving ignorance. And then my next paragraph was, I am passionate about it because of this. Talked about, again, being on the newspaper and also my 11th grade history teacher. And then, what is the bigger picture was my final paragraph. Taking a small step towards dissolving ignorance in daily lives. And that's something that I wish a lot of more people value that I've noticed when I'm at this school. So that's just about going to wrap up my Stanford supplementary essays. Thanks for checking this out, and let me know if you want to see more college type videos. Maybe I'll do one on my Common App essays. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.